This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And for those of you who have been listening to Avoid the Maze, we are in our second year. And you know what? There are so many journeys through life. I say it almost every podcast. I had this vision of who I thought I was going to be when I was probably 9 or 10 years old. I'm nothing like that person at all. But we have dreams and we start walking down those paths to reach, the end of the rainbow. We never quite get there. We take turns along the way. There's forks in the roads and choices to be made and challenges to handle. Today, my guest is Nancy Pickard, and Nancy has a journey that eventually turned her into a coach. And many of us are coaching each other, whether we go by that title or not, as we help each other out through the journey of life, walking through that maze. Sometimes we can give somebody a little hint as to which way they should turn. So Nancy, welcome to Avoid the Maze, and give us a little bit of background.
Okay, well, so I used to own a personal training gym, and I was the mother of 2 kids, really happily married. Life was like amazing, honestly. I loved what I was doing. I wasn't looking to do more. I really was fulfilled, I thought. And then my marriage fell apart, and then I fell apart. And I didn't have the tools to actually navigate that situation.
Sure.
I never thought it would come. I never thought that my husband would want out. I never thought my beautiful family that I had built was going to implode, all of those things. And so it was a long journey back. And what I didn't know then, there's so much I didn't know then that I do know now. But one of the things was that I was very other referenced. I only saw myself through the eyes of how my husband saw me.
Okay.
When he no longer wanted me, I no longer wanted me. Instead of me thinking, wow, he just had this huge midlife crisis and he now is dating somebody who's 23 years younger than he is. That wasn't about me, but I made it all about me.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what we women do all the time. We make it about ourselves. And so I felt like I was the victim in my story, which kept me very stuck. And it kept me always looking at his life or to judge my life. And even that was just, I couldn't compete with that. I didn't learn that for a very long time. And anyway, so I moved forward. I dated many people. I felt a strong need to fix that picture, a strong need to be remarried and living, like getting back in that whole life again. Because the other thing was that I thought that I was so strong and everything that I was because I was half of a whole.
Got it.
And that was such a disservice to myself, instead of knowing that I was whole all by myself. And those were sort of what I had to really learn. And it's been life-changing for me, both of those things, to be self-referenced, to know that I'm whole by myself, to put myself first, to understand my needs, my wants, my desires, and then have what's left over to help everyone else, which is really who I've become.
It's interesting as you were telling your story. I too went through a divorce early on. And sort of felt the same way. My husband at the time was a dentist. I had helped put him through dental school. I was just becoming what they call the dental wife. I was a stay-at-home mom and went to all those fun afternoon events. And I thought that was going to be my picture perfect life. And the day that we both imploded at the exact same time, I realized that all this had been taken away from me. And like you, I saw my worth in his life. I was the wife. I was the mother. I was going to, help him in his dental practice and all these things. And it's like, but if he's not there, what do I have?
Mhm.
So I think what you went through and what I went through is so normal. But yet I'm sure when you shared it with your friends and family, they probably didn't understand it.
So it's really interesting. I used to think that it was easier when your spouse died than it was when you got divorced,
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
because you were the only one that loses them in divorce.
Right.
And it becomes personal. When somebody dies, you don't make it about yourself. You might be afraid of being alone, but you don't make you not being with them about you, that
Right.
you did
Right.
something wrong. Obviously, for every other human being in the world and my children, thank God he didn't die, and that, yes, that was the better choice. But I did always remember thinking, this is harder. This is so much harder. He's still out there somewhere, and I'm still having to, I don't have to, but I was still putting too much attention on his huge life and how he was living and comparing myself to all of that. And I think as women, that's what we do until
Right.
we learn to do differently. And we really do want to learn to do differently and be different. And we have a lot of fears, and we have all these disempowering beliefs in our shadow. I'm a shadow coach. That's what I help people uncover, the disempowering beliefs that keep them stuck. So they came from their childhood and they kept them safe as children, but they no longer keep them safe as adults. They keep them playing small. And that's where the work is. The work is to help everyone uncover those beliefs so they don't have to continue to play small. They don't have to live in fear that they can't do something. They're not enough. They're not worthy. They're broken. Their needs don't matter. All of these shadow beliefs are what keep us playing small.
So some people, when they're going through a divorce, and this is something that I remember so many people saying to me, okay, Karen, it's over. Okay, you've gone to court and now you're officially divorced. Okay, get on with your life. And I would look at them and say, but I don't know what my life is. And that's what I'm hearing you say too. You didn't know what
Yeah.
it was at that time. I had friends who I thought were truly my friends. But once the divorce went through, I found out that many of them thought they were his friends. And so
Right.
now I had a whole new life that I had to develop. It wasn't just, where do I fit in? Now it's like half of my friends are gone.
Yeah.
And now what do I do? So what made that light bulb go off in your head to say, wait a second, I can't live like this, feeling unhappy all the time, feeling like, he's better off than me. Was there an aha moment that said, hey, now I get it?
I think that once I got into the coaching world, like I actually hired a coach for a year. And once I started working on myself, because if you would ask me when I was married, did I love myself? Did I have confidence in myself? I would have said yes. I really thought I did. But the reality is, I really didn't. I had this shadow belief that I wasn't safe alone that was formed very early in my life when I was 5 years old. And that stayed with me. And once I uncovered that belief and brought it into my conscious awareness, then I could give myself a new empowering belief, because I could say, well, wait a minute. I'm a grown-ass woman, right? And I am okay. And I'm financially secure. I'm healthy. My kids are grown. I'm athletic. I can do anything with my life. And I'm choosing to be the victim in my story. So once I saw all that, I was able to start slowly making choices, staying in alignment with what I wanted and what I was going to do. And when you start to chunk it down and make small actionable steps, and if you can afford to do so, have a coach, because coaches help us. They are our accountability partners. They help us move forward. And once I started to do that, it's been like an onion, and layer after layer after layer comes off. And as they come off, I remember who I am. I prove to myself over and over and over again that if there's something I want, I can get it. I can make it. And once you realize that you are 100% responsible for every choice you make and that every choice matters, well, that for me, that's relief, because I now trust myself. So if it's just a matter of me wanting something and working to get it, I know I'm going to get it. Or I'm going to get, if I don't get it, I'm going to get something else that I didn't even know I wanted till I stepped in. You know, once you learn those lessons and you stop becoming the victim, then it all unfolds exactly as it should. And, you know, I have a spiritual belief as I'm a spiritual coach, that the universe has my back and everything will happen exactly as it should. That doesn't mean everything will work out the way I think it will work out, but everything works out for the evolution of my soul, for the lessons I'm supposed to be learning. If I fall, I'm falling forward. I'm going to make the changes I want to make. I'm going to pick myself up again and again and again, trusting in myself. And I will, that's how I live my life. That's really how I roll.
Well, and you know, you've said a couple of things that I think are so important to our listeners, is that you're constantly evolving. So that first step you take doesn't mean, aha, I'm okay now, I get it. There's going to be more than that one step. Yes, we are going to trip and fall along the way, but we're the only ones who can get ourselves up. And, you know, we can have that huge support system all around us when we fall down, but we have to trust in ourselves to say, I can get up, and then you can support me.
Right.
So many people, and I've noticed this over the last year, so many people believe that because I'm doing this podcast and because I'm talking to you and you do coaching, that there must be something special, some fairy dust that somebody put on us to say, hey, look at them, you know, they're okay. And the reality of it is that I'm not always okay. I do revert to some of those voices in my head that say, you're not good enough. And I have to sometimes sit and fight through that and figure out, why am I letting that voice being heard? So when you started coaching, you understood the coaching concept because you hired a coach. And a coach is different than a therapist. And I think that our audience really needs to understand that, because as a coach, if I were to say to you right now, Nancy, I'm still mourning over my marriage that was 40 years ago. What do I do? I don't think you're going to give me a list of things to do. Whereas a therapist might, because they've gotten to know you, but you're going to guide me through me coming up with the ideas of what I'm going to do.
Right.
So let's think about some of the people that you've coached along the way. Have you had people who have come in and said, fix me? Because I've heard that many times, like, you're the coach.
Yeah. I haven't heard fix me. But people come to me because they're stuck. They may not know exactly even how they're stuck or why they're stuck, but they know that they're not making the changes that they want to make. So they may think that they want a different career, or they want a different partner, or they want to get into a relationship, or they want to get out of a relationship, or they want to lose 30 pounds or 50 pounds or 100 pounds, or they haven't had sex for 10 years and they want to change. You know, they come to me usually with some idea that something is not working for them, but they don't generally know to the extent of what's holding them back. And the difference between therapy and coaching for your listeners, in case they're not really aware, is that coaches are action oriented. So even though I do talk about your childhood, because I'm helping you uncover these beliefs that you're
Sure.
not aware of, it's really, all right, now we've uncovered that. Now you've given yourself a new empowering belief. Now you have the assignment this week to do affirmations or whatever you've come up with to help imprint that new empowering belief and an action step towards your vision and goal that you've set up. And you cannot come back next week without having done it, because then you don't need a coach, you need a therapist. So a therapist, you can go week after week after week and talk your heart out for an hour and hang and leave, or hang up the phone or the Zoom or whatever, and you're not accountable to do anything. With a life coach, you are accountable to yourself and your coach every single week to follow through with what you've decided you were going to do.
Absolutely.
It's a big difference.
Yep.
So there's a lot of movement. I'm also a boundary coach. And so helping people set healthy boundaries and then having to follow through each week with what they say they're going to do and what they're going to ask for from their boss or their partner or their children or whatever. Sometimes it's difficult, but they do it. And then they see, oh my God, that wasn't hard at all. It was more fear in my mind than, so it's very action oriented. I think that most people, I work in packages of 10, and generally most, at least 50% of them are done in 10 sessions. Some people want a second session, and then, some keep going, but in most cases, you come to me with particular problems, and I teach you particular tools that will support you so that you can go on your merry way, and you don't need to be coming to me week after week after week for, the rest of your life.
So we do another show on New Cleveland Radio. It's called the Intentionality Gurus, and the person who runs it, she also is a life and business coach, and more for the business side. And we are in our 4th year doing this show. And it's funny because in the beginning, she said to me, Karen, will you be my guinea pig? And I said, absolutely. I'm an open book. And what I have found over the last 4 years is because of our relationship, I had been in therapy many times. And when I did an exercise, I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for the therapist, because therapist was going to give me a dirty look if I walked in the following week and hadn't done it. But with coaching, when an exercise or an idea, is presented, I know that I'm empowered enough to say, that's not for me, or I'd like to do it this way, or, I'm not ready to do it. But then my coach will start asking different questions, never saying I had to, it's right, it's wrong. And that's why I think coaching is so important, because we dig down deep inside ourselves, but we make those choices. We face the challenges that we want to face. And sometimes, we put our blinders on and don't want to look at that challenge at the moment.
That's what coaches help you do. And the other big difference between a coach and a therapist is that coaches share by example. So if you and I have worked together for 3 months, you basically know a ton about my life, not just, I went to a therapist for, years when I was going through my divorce, and I don't even know if they're married. You don't know anything about their life, but coaches share. We like to say we share from the scar, not from the wound. So we don't share from open things that we're still working on in our life. We share from the things that have happened to us, that have taken us down, that we've picked ourselves back up, and how we've done that. So that makes us extremely relatable. And the more things that have happened in somebody's life, like I've been divorced, I've had cancer, I had babies die at the end of my pregnancy, I've had so many different traumas in my life happen that it's hard to come to me with an issue that I don't relate to.
Exactly.
And that makes me very relatable. And so you want that. You want to, like, you become friends with your clients because you both are sharing so much as you're supporting them in moving forward. And they know that you're not asking them to do anything that you don't do yourself. That's a big part of it.
And it's a very big part of it, because when you're feeling vulnerable and you are letting some of this information out, one of the things that I've noticed is that when I start talking about something that I want to change, and I can just feel it coming up from my gut and going out of my mouth, and I can sometimes look around and go, wait, where did that come from? But oftentimes I'll hear the coach say something about an experience that is relatable. And it's like, oh, I mean, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who wakes up in the middle of the night and cries. And it'd be like, no. And sometimes, I have to sit back and think, yeah, we're all human. We all have different emotions.
We're all human.
Play off at different times. So you've come a long way. But in the beginning, when you were going through all this, you had children at home. You still had to be the mom, even though the mom may look a little different than she did, weeks or months before. How did your children handle as you went from not feeling good about yourself to starting to find yourself?
Well, it's really interesting because it was just Mother's Day, right?
Right.
And so they've now rectified that, but on Mother's Day, they didn't send flowers. They called me, obviously, but those first years after my divorce, on Mother's Day, they would send me, like, I'm not kidding, Chanel pocketbook and flower, fruit baskets, so much stuff. It was ridiculous. And when this happened just this last time that I got nothing, I thought to myself, it's really a sign of my emotional wholeness that my sons no longer feel the need to take care of me and pick me up in that way. And yet, of course, I called them and I said, like, okay, I don't need the pocketbooks anymore, or this or this or that. But I'm still your mother. It's Mother's Day. I know you have wives and children and daughters and everything else. But, and like the next day, the flowers came. But it was really, but that to your point, I was really broken. And I had one son in college, so he never moved back in. And I had one son who went through our senior year together. And then he also didn't move back in because they both had got jobs and we had them in apartments and stuff like that. But I think that in the beginning, not only were they trying to heal from their own tragic, upset of their father and everything that was happening, I had to navigate things so that I didn't make him the wrong person. And yet I was very much the victim in the moment of the story. But I wanted them to have a healthy, relationship with their father. But if it happened today with the tools that I have now, or if I'm working, I do a whole series with women called Healing Your Heart. I do it with men too, but it's all about loss. So loss from death, loss from divorce, separation from a sibling to a sibling, or, estrangement from a mother to their children, which unfortunately is so common these days. I don't even know what's happening, but it's so common. And it's all about taking responsibility and learning where you co-created and how do you move forward and how do you keep yourself from being the victim. I didn't have those tools then. If I had them now, I would navigate it very differently. And so I went through what I went through, and my kids went through what they went through. And that was our journey. I can't go back and wish I had done things differently, because it made us all who we are today. And so it's, I guess my advice to parents is to, you don't have to hide your feelings. Your feelings are your feelings. You want to have them all, and you want your children to feel comfortable having all of theirs. But try to quickly not be the victim in your story. And if you need help and you need support, please get it. I highly recommend the book called The Spiritual Divorce by Debbie Ford. That's what I am. I'm a spiritual divorce coach. They've switched the name to Healing Your Heart. But Debbie's book was the first book that I read during that whole era of what I was going through. And it really gets you out of being the victim in your story. And it gives you the tools that you need to navigate how to handle it and how to handle it with your children better.
Well, and there are more tools today than there were years ago. My divorce happened in the 80s, and I truly had no real support. Even my family, yeah, they were there for me, but they weren't there for me. It was like, I remember the first phone call from my mother saying, "What did you do wrong?" And it was like, oh, wow, what did I do wrong? And I dwelled on that for a long time. What did I do wrong? And luckily, I met a number of people during that time that just took me in their arms. It was like, I'll be your friend. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. And I realized that, yeah, I was an okay person. Our marriage just wasn't an okay marriage.
Right.
And now, many, many years later, I can look back at it and say, I'm almost grateful for it because I've become so much better in the long run. But while you're going through it, no, it's not going to be easy. And we all go through changes regularly. And as you talked about grief, there's all forms of grief. It can be the loss of a marriage. It can be a death in the family. It can be loss of a job, your children moving away, all the things.
Loss of physical health,
Yep,
right?
Exactly. And, I know as I do this show regularly, most days I feel really, really great about everything we're talking about and what we're doing. And then there are some days that it's like, I don't think I can do the show. But I find that once I get my guest on like you, it's like, I'm so glad because there's a healing process for all of us.
Yes, for sure.
So how long have you been coaching now?
I think this is my 10th year. So for 16 years, I was a personal trainer.
Okay.
Then I got divorced. I owned a personal training gym, and then I got divorced. And then I didn't work for 9 years. And I moved to Aspen, Colorado, and I was exercising all day long, playing all day long. And even though I was on some boards and doing fundraising, I started to get like, this just can't be all I'm doing. And this is very boring. And there's more to life than this, and there's more to life than me. And so when I first read that book, Spiritual Divorce, in that instant, I decided I'm going to get myself a spiritual divorce coach, and I'm going to become a spiritual divorce coach. Like, I'm going to take my drama and my trauma, and I'm going to support other people. And that's how I started. That was the first thing I wanted to do. Now I have like 7 or 8 different certifications. I'm always getting new ones. And I have courses online, and I do Zoom group coaching. I'm just expanding as I go. My maze keeps changing.
Right.
And that's exactly what I want. I have a growth mindset, and I'm open for whatever comes my way that feels like, oh, that would be a good new tool. I'd like to do that. And then I move forward and I do it.
Well, that's a great message that all of us hopefully can live by, because, I know when I made the change from corporate America and decided to take my degree and go further, I started podcasting, I started blogging. And again, I did it from my experiences and didn't even realize how many experiences I had been through until you start to think about it. So you talk about it, write it down. And that's when I realized that I was relatable with other people. And
Mhm.
by sharing our stories like you have, um, our listeners can then sit back and go, you know what? I know it's a rough time right now, but I can get through it.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm going to pick up the phone and call Nancy and, go through coaching with her. Maybe I'm going to pick up the phone and talk to Nancy, and maybe she's going to refer me to somebody else. Or maybe in the next few minutes, I'm going to be on the computer and Google something, and it's going to lead me in the right direction.
Mhm.
Um, it's taking those chances. And like you
Yeah.
said, a growth mindset. So, how can our listeners find you if they want to connect with you?
Well, the easiest way is nancypickardlifecoach.com. That's my website, and a link to my book, Bigger, Better, Braver, Conquer Your Fears, Embrace Your Courage, and Transform Your Life is there. There's a free chapter to my book is there. And I have like 3 or 4 different giveaways that should be in your show notes. I think you have my media kit with
Yeah.
all that information. Okay. I do free discovery calls. So they're 1-hour calls to see whether or not we're a good fit, or whether you'd want to be taking one of my courses or go into my group Zoom. There's everything. I have something for every level. Starting with my book is a really great way to see if you can do it all by yourself, and then you don't need a coach, because that's really what it is. It's a step-by-step how to get out of your own way, get rid of your unconscious beliefs, let go of your fears, take them with you, and move forward. So all of the above.
All of the above. Well, we'll make sure we have that in the show notes for those of you listening saying, wait, I missed something. Don't worry. You didn't miss it. Just go back and read the notes. We'll definitely have a link to Nancy's website because, again, get out there, learn about her. And if you don't think that she's your right fit, that's okay. One of the things we're doing here at New Cleveland Radio is we're asking you to contact us. I talk to life coaches 4 or 5 times a day on Avoid the Maze. And the one thing I have to say, Nancy, is that I always feel like I'm talking to my best friend when I talk to each and every one of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the healing comes, that you're not just talking to somebody who's taking your insurance money. And there's nothing wrong with counseling, but it's a totally different type of work that you have to do. So, any last words for our listeners?
Get off the couch. Life is not in your comfort zone. And I think that people think that people who are successful are fearless, but nobody's fearless. People who are successful have just learned to go with their fears, move forward. And if they fall, they pick themselves up and they stay in the game. And if you stay in the game, you're going to get there. Honestly, it's not like that's the truth.
That is absolutely. I still have lots of fears and I face many of them every single day. So she's right. Get up, get moving, and make a good life for yourself. Thank you, Nancy. We'll be in touch. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.